What is this? What's happening here? We're here.
This room smells
There's
terrible.
only 2 rooms.
Yeah.
It's because it's an addition of Crossing the Line that we've been planning for quite some time. Mark, we apologize for the long distance phone call here. Hopefully we don't rack up your phone bill too much, but welcome, my friends, into another edition. And yes, you can see we're all here together. Mike's visiting from Florida. Jack has relocated and we are settled in, and we're all here in Pennsylvania with the exception of Mark. So we miss you, buddy. But this is 75% of us sitting in one room. This is pretty cool, guys. I don't think we've done this since college.
The magic of editing. We're actually all still where we normally are.
It's true.
I love you, Mark.
I think it'd be really funny. It's the magic of editing. We're actually all in the same room. These guys kicked me out of the room.
Yeah.
It's like back in the day when you would play like LAN computer games. You guys ever see that picture where the guys like duct taped to the ceiling so they're not playing on the same screen? Mark's actually just in the room over, and the rest of us are in the same.
If someone was with Mark, it'd be just like Com Radio.
He's in the
2 in
second
one
booth.
room and 2 in the second booth. Yeah.
It feels kind of like you guys are just like, we'll just stuff a third person in the main room. You can go in the other one, whatever.
I think Jack's a good enough editor where he could probably put your like floating head above us somewhere.
Yeah.
And like it could be one of those memes where they play the shooting star song. Have Mark flying.
You're just gonna have Mark's face on the body of a cat flying the rainbow across the screen.
And just do like little swim moves.
Yeah.
Jan cat, Mark cat.
Yep.
That would probably be our highest viewed video of all time.
Gary.
Yeah, all we have to do is hashtag cat.
Yeah.
Mark is a cat.
Yeah. Our 2 most successful videos have to do with cats.
Can we do Neon Gary?
Ooh, that could get some numbies.
So I think what we've come to the conclusion is this is now a cat channel.
Yeah.
Welcome to Crossing the Lines Cat Edition.
How sad would you be if we turned into a cat channel and our subscribers grew by like 25,000 overnight?
As long as we can monetize, I don't care what we are.
Crossing the lines of yarn.
Guys, I've told you plenty of times, I will sponsor anything as long as the check clears. If we need to become a cat channel to make the money happen, we're a cat channel.
I bet I could find you stuff that you wouldn't sponsor.
You're probably right.
PetSmart, hit us up.
I would sponsor.
Speaking of, our sponsor for today is Meow Mix. I want chicken. I want liver. Meow Mix, Meow Mix. Please deliver. I want the show, boys.
Oh, we do have a second sponsor. It's the Kitten Mittens from Always Sunny. They hopped on as well.
Here's some mittens for your kitten.
And with that, before we go any further, welcome into another edition of Crossing the Line podcast.
We're sorry.
Yeah, we are back. There's 3 of us here. Mark's hanging out in Georgia, way, way away from us. One day we'll get all 4 of us together. But before we go any further, again, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, if you've not done so far, that was a tongue twister. Drop a like and a subscription down below. We would greatly appreciate it. The numbers have grown, and we really appreciate all of you. Let's keep this trend going. But guys, we have a lot to get into today, and a lot of it's going to revolve around baseball because we are effectively at the halfway point. In fact, some teams are at the 81 game mark, so it's a really good time for us to double back on our baseball predictions and take a look into the second half of the season. Figure out what we got right, figure out what has been abysmal. Spoiler alert, my player predictions are awful. Some of us have done a really good job with our player predictions. Some of us have done a really good job with our team predictions. But there has been good, there's been bad, there's been ugly. We'll get into all of it. But first, let's talk overarching as we are about halfway through the season. Obviously, the Rays have been incredible. The Braves have been incredible. There's been some really good baseball. There's been some really bad baseball across Major League Baseball. But anything stand out to you guys so far across the landscape of the league that's been your top story?
Some of these teams out of nowhere, Rangers, Diamondbacks. I mean, the landscape of Orioles, we saw a little bit of it last year, but I mean, all these young teams are already starting to overperform. It's going to be interesting. The future of the league is definitely changing quicker than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think it's that. I guess there are just some teams that have been like surprisingly bad that I think are going to pick it up. But like you said, I think it's also in large part because teams that we didn't expect to be good are good. But then I think there are also those teams like I really thought the Mariners were going to be better this year, and they're fourth in the division.
Sure.
And I don't really see. I don't know if they're going to be able to climb much higher. Like you look at Texas. Texas is playing well. I don't think they'll climb in front of them. I don't see the Astros going any further back in that division. And then Angels are going to be really interesting to see how they blow it. I feel like they're going to somehow. But I still don't know how the Mariners climb ahead of 3 teams in that division. And then the other surprise, because we had a lot of, I think everyone had them making the playoffs, the Blue Jays. But I was rewatching that episode, and I did say the Blue Jays and the Padres are 2 teams where it honestly doesn't matter how much talent they cultivate. They always seem to find their way into like an 87 and 82 record or whatever it is, because just so happy to see Alex Manoah suck.
Well, it's 2 good divisions too, right? Like you talk about these teams, and the NL West is a good division. You've got the Dodgers, right? And the we expected the Padres to be good. The Giants and
I can't believe they're that bad.
The Padres?
Padres.
I know it's weird, but like so you have the Diamondbacks are playing really good baseball. The Dodgers are still good, and then you go to the flip side with the AL West. Rangers playing really good ball. The Astros are still the Astros. So it's not like you're playing in the AL Central, which is abysmal. I mean, the AL Central stinks, and we kind of expected it to, but maybe not to this extent. But one team that you guys haven't brought up, Mark, I don't know if you were going to bring them up, that has been a really enjoyable watch over the first 81 games. The Cincinnati Reds are fun baseball, man.
Ellie!
It's Ellie De La Cruz is
Yeah.
fun baseball to watch. I mean, outside of that, I mean, they have
Fastest freaking man alive. Guy takes 4 strides, he's at second base.
It's funny to me that there are 2 Cruzes in the same division who are essentially could be interchangeable. They both hit the ball 120 miles per hour off the bat. They both run from first to third in like 4 seconds.
Laser rocket for arms.
And they're both hands.
Yeah, and they both play the infield. Why not? Like it's incredible to watch. I also think that like we didn't mention how incredible the AL East is, and if they're gonna just stay that way.
Yeah.
As bad as the Central Division is, the East is incredible. And it's almost like it's going to be a shame at the end of the year that a couple of those teams aren't going to make the playoffs and a couple just abysmal teams are going to make the playoffs and probably just get trounced in the first round.
Speaking of abysmal teams, one we didn't bring up and one I love to bring up. How about those New York Mets? I'm going to do my best Frank the Tank impression.
We hate them.
Terrible.
Dude, the Mets sucking is like
sober for that was way too sober.
That's true. I mean,
best part about the Mets being bad is that I get to like kind of like relish in that moment with all the Braves people down here. And it's like one thing that brings us together because nobody likes the Mets.
Yeah.
Enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's where you find common ground where you're at. Because obviously they're not Phillies fans either. But I think if you asked a Braves fan and you asked a Phillies fan what their least favorite team in the NL East was, I think both of them would tell you it's the Mets.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they'd forget the Nationals are in the division.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, especially after the offseason the Mets had and all this parading around like they won the World Series because they spent the most money. When
That's definitely the first time they've ever done that.
But I think the funniest thing is it wasn't an outlandish prediction by many people to think like they weren't going to be that good, because while the signings they made were all great in name, like Scherzer and Verlander are very old, and like you can decline very, very quickly. I think we're kind of seeing that with definitely Scherzer. Verlander maybe a little bit less.
Didn't I see Verlander might be done for the year?
Yeah, I mean I think they're talking about dealing Scherzer at the deadline possibly, which no one saw.
Wild to me.
Pete Alonso's and Francisco Lindor are playing very well, but outside of that, like we knew they'd be good in the offense. Outside of that, their offense isn't like anything special, and it's kind of shown that way. But yeah, the Mets are easy to hate, and I think they did themselves no favors by just talking it up like they won the World Series because they spent a boatload of money.
So you're telling me practicing to celebrate the World Series in spring training is not a good idea?
Especially when you haven't won shit in a long time.
1986 was the last Mets World Series. I mean, listen, 3 of the 4 of us are disgruntled Flyers fans, right? So we talk. There's. I know it's a different sport, but like we can't talk crap when one of our teams has not won a championship since '75, another one's not won a championship since '83. So it's not like I can sit here and talk crap on Mets fans for that, but
you can't.
But I'm not watching the Sixers celebrate, with confetti coming down. The last time the Sixers erroneously shot off confetti was the Marco Bellinelli game.
Oh, we remember.
Yeah,
That was
I
that graduation party. And Jack's dad was giving a speech during that time. And we all were like, this. Jack's dad gave a great speech, I'm sure. I blacked out.
Couldn't
was
tell
so
you.
pissed.
Don't know if
Yeah.
it was
I
real
was
or
so
not.
pissed that the Sixers lost that game.
Morgan and Mike were sitting in the corner, like imagining a dartboard with my dad's face on it, and just throwing darts 100 miles an hour at his face.
It was a great time. I was like,
I'm sure it was. You don't remember though.
no, I don't. All I remember was that we were at a party which was supposed to commemorate our graduation. Only thing we cared about was the Sixers winning this game. And then they lose, and all everybody else at the party who weren't enamored with the game were waiting for was the game to be over. Finally, the game's over. It's like, all right, time to start, having some positive vibes in here. Not gonna happen.
Sulk.
To be fair, we did have Chipotle cater, which was nice.
It was.
Oh, whoa. That's like the most on-brand Jack thing I've ever heard.
100%. Now, hold on. What with the Chipotle catering? Did you go to pick it up in store? Because you may or may not like to steal Chipotle hot sauce.
What? That's crazy. Jack wouldn't do that.
Unconfirmed.
That's a pre-pandemic
I'd like to,
klepto food.
I'd like to address this because
address what I watched you do it.
can it be considered stealing if I finish the entire bottle in that one sitting?
That's fair.
Or is that just saving the environment? Because
That's a bigger problem.
I'm not using the environment.
Did you
or-
recycle?
Yeah,
Oh, that's all that matters. So you're good.
No, the biggest problem is that Jack is out there using an entire thing of hot sauce in his Chipotle bowl.
Yeah, it's impressive.
It's a problem for your butthole, Jack. That's what we're worried about, man.
Listen, I feel like I am pretty good with hot sauce. Like I feel like I do a pretty decent job at like being tolerable of heat. Jack blows everybody out of the water. It's incredible.
I've only seen him flustered from hot sauce one time, and it was on purpose because he got one of those boxes of like how hot can you go from Myrtle Beach, and that was a little bit hot. But otherwise, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, that was up there.
But I'm not going to confirm or deny I ain't no rat, but we may or may not have had an entire cabinet dedicated to Chipotle Tabasco sauce in
never
our
happened.
college apartment. That's all.
Unconfirmed.
I
Unconfirmed.
can't confirm or deny.
Actually,
That was a thing.
I've never been in your apartment, so I wouldn't know.
See, I used all the hot sauce that I would take. Then Thomas started going to Chipotle a lot, and he would bring a hot sauce back for me. But if I didn't have Chipotle, that's stealing. But if I take it and I use the whole thing, it's the same as me taking it, sitting in the restaurant and eating it all. So I don't see the difference.
Shout out to Thomas. We turned him from a denier who would get Qdoba and bring it to Chipotle and eat Qdoba in the Chipotle restaurant.
Qdoba is better.
Stealing Chipotle hot sauce. Qdoba's better for the chips and queso,
No, yes, that's about
but
it.
that's it.
Qdoba's better.
Look at this man.
Oh, wrong.
Chipotle is.
You're just wrong, Tyler. I'm not even going to address it, but you're wrong.
I want you to address it.
Please.
Can we talk about, by the
We
way,
It's like-
5 good
it
minutes
goes-
of sports. It's Chipotle.
we're going back to sports. I just want
It goes like Chipotle, Moe's, a whole level of shit, and then Qdoba.
50 feet of crap, and then there's us.
And then there's the
Qdoba is like the Costco version.
Whoa,
of Moe's.
whoa! Don't talk shit on Costco.
How
Sorry.
free
Kirkland
guac?
is great.
Free guac.
Oh, it's not. If they have to give it away for free, then it's not that good.
You're goddamn
That's
right.
not true.
It's not good guac.
I said what I said.
Are you subscribing to adult content, paying for it? Didn't
No.
think so. Didn't think so.
It's not that good.
I was gonna say.
Brought to you by.
But if you guys
Okay.
are looking for my Feet Finders page, you can click right here.
Mark's Little Piggies.
I would disagree though. I think Pancheros is second.
Pancheros is great.
I'll give you that.
Pancheros is
I
top tier.
can't speak on it. I've never had it.
I wish there were more of them because
It's funny we're talking about this because I literally had Chipotle today. That was what I had.
Oh, I had Chipotle on Sunday.
Delicious.
I mean,
You didn't have Qdoba because Qdoba sucks.
Well, there's no Qdoba
Be
near
able
me.
to go to work on Monday. You didn't want to have food poisoning.
Maybe if they made more money because they were better at their jobs, like making good burritos, there'd be more locations.
Qdoba, when I branch off and I do my own show, you can sponsor me.
Listen, I think we're alienating some.
Tyler's really leaving
Leaving
over
the line.
Qdoba Chipotle.
I'm gonna get Chipotle tomorrow. I just know it.
Headline reads: These idiots have been friends for almost a decade. What broke them apart was Chipotle versus Qdoba.
So Josie thinks Qdoba is superior to Chipotle.
It is,
and I think one of our ideas for our rehearsal dinner for the wedding is we get Qdoba to cater and Chipotle to cater, and then people have to vote after their meal which one's better.
Like a blind taste.
That's a lot of wasted Qdoba, though.
Well,
Who's gonna know?
spend any amount of money to prove my point.
Tyler and Josie are just gonna polish that off themselves. I'll get some of that chips in case.
Dude,
Even if I'm not, the Chipotle ballot boxes are going to look like the Biden election. Like we go to sleep and suddenly they're all full. That's. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I was just making a joke.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, I just looked up the stats for Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, the alleged people who were doing well for the Mets.
Having a good season.
And Lindor is batting 225. Pete Alonso is batting 221. Just
But
for
how many home
perspective,
runs and RBIs is Pete Alonso?
stinky.
How many RBIs is Pete Alonso?
How many
Come on.
runs have they driven in? Let's
I
be real.
really don't know.
Look at the real. I think Alonso's at like 60 and like 23 home runs. He's having a good season.
I don't know if we could talk like averages when we have our leadoff hitters still at under the Mendoza line.
75.
It's not close either.
No, it's hilarious. Did you see the stat? Who was the? Oh, they were comparing him to somebody who has like a 3-something average, and his at like 189.
Oh, it's
yeah.
Kyle Tucker, right?
No, the guy who's on the Orioles, the guy who has the highest batting average in the American League, has reached base 8 times less than Kyle Schwarber, who has the lowest batting average in all of baseball.
Yeah, because his OBP's off the charts.
Yeah.
He walks a ton.
Yeah.
You know what makes Schwarber great? He gets on base. He gets on base.
Mark just did an entire Moneyball scene by himself.
That was great.
Hey, sometimes you got.
Well done. Mark's actually staging a one-man Moneyball show
I'd pay.
in Atlanta by himself.
I've actually already started it with my team. Don't tell anybody I'm paying 13-year-olds, but I'm paying them like not much at all, Moneyball style.
Nice, smart.
Getting production.
Are you doing some of
I
that?
just pay them in a prime.
They're
They
like,
love that. They love that
this
stuff.
10-year-old, I'm going to invest in him and then reap the benefits of whatever Nike shoe deal that he signs in 20 years.
I mean, that's half of being an instructor. Yeah.
Nice.
That's smart.
You think you're gonna make the league?
Coach Mark when you win an ESPY.
Yeah. And if the kid's not going to be successful, at least find the parents that are already successful and just make sure that they know that you treat their kid really well.
I want to thank Coach Fagnani.
I hope none of my clients are watching this, but
Correct.
yes, that's what I do. So
I thought you forced them to subscribe.
None of my
the kids,
would
but
gunned
Yeah,
down.
my team's way cooler.
Coach, what's that word? Okay,
Uh,
thanks.
none of my success would be. I would not be here without him. Is that what it says?
It also says best looking coach. I don't know if you skipped over that part.
He is much
No? Okay.
handsome than me and always will be.
Handsomer.
Thank you. And that's
Handsome.
my parents. They're not as good as Coach Mark.
I wish Coach was my dad.
When Mike was struggling to read earlier, that was his Floyd Mayweather impression.
It's not his fault he can't read.
It's gonna adapt to reading.
I used to be an asshole.
I'm Floyd Mayweather,
Heart radio.
and welcome to the show, Your Stripes Movement.
Yeah, you had said about you said about catering Chipotle or Qdoba.
Yeah.
It only made me think of one thing when you said something about the dinner was the most incredible thing I've ever seen at a wedding, and it was at Zuli's wedding.
I
Yeah,
couldn't see it at my own wedding, so I'm glad you saw something.
It was
I
what?
don't think Mark. I think Mark is telling this from secondhand account.
Mark-
Yeah.
No, it was so early in the
Like
night. I remember. It was
Imperial
pretzel
plane,
room,
he
man.
ascended above his body.
The what? The pretzels. Yeah.
Pretzel room. There was an entire room of soft pretzels. You couldn't.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'm absolutely 100% going to steal from
Donut wall.
Zuli, donut wall.
Donut wall.
Yeah.
I told him the night of his wedding that I
Donut
would
wall
take
was a
that
great
one.
idea. I think I had probably, I don't know, 2 ideas for the entire wedding. And my wife, while the 3 of us were out, was it 3 of us? Did all 4 of us go? Somebody wasn't there. Jack, you weren't there initially, right? It was me, you, and
No.
Mark.
No, I was
I
there.
think
You
we're all
were
there. I think we're all there.
Who, regardless of what it was, there was 3 of us in the beginning, and then all 4 of us got together at the end.
Oh,
And
someone did come meet
while
us.
we were down in Mannion drinking our faces off, my wife was calling me like panicked because some of our like crafts were not going to be done. And I'm like, sorry, babe, I'm hammered. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not driving. Like
The donut wall's done.
It started. I remember
I
that
feel
night. It was
terrible.
the three of us. It was me, you, and Mike.
Yeah, I think
And then
Jack
and Josie
met us
met
in-
up with us.
Yeah.
But I have never felt more awful about the wedding than that moment when she called me and she was like, I'm swamped. And I'm like, I'm drunk.
I've never felt more awful than the day of the wedding when the night before Mark cracked his phone and I think dropped it in a toilet. And we had to go to Best Buy the next day and we did a shot wheel that night. And I was so severely hungover I couldn't move. But I had to drive Mark to Best Buy so we could get a phone.
We should do that.
I really did not think I was going to make it to and from Best Buy in that car. That was brutal.
That shot.
That sucked for you. Definitely not for me spending $1,400 that weekend, man. Like whatever though.
And the Best Buy guy absolutely clowning Mark at the desk.
Oh yeah, he's like, "What'd you do?" Dropped it in the toilet. This is waterproof. I'm like, kinda. You know what really sucks, dude? That thing works now.
Really?
That's impressive. It's a good phone.
It's the best. Apparently, iPhones are waterproof. You just have to give it like a week and then charge it not in the little thing, but you have to charge it on like a charging station.
Wild.
Sure.
But hey, it works.
Proud of you.
It's not the one I use now, just so
Actually,
everyone knows.
not proud of you, proud of the phone.
Yeah.
Proud of the phone.
Push through.
All right, guys, let's get back to baseball for a second.
Oh, that's what we're talking.
We were talking a little bit of baseball. We are at the halfway point. We talked some of our storylines and things like that. Let's get to some of our preseason picks because some of them are great. Some of them I think are spot on. Mike, you've got a really good chance of winning the NL Cy Young.
Maybe the AL Cy Young.
Mark,
We'll see.
you've got a really good chance of winning the NL MVP. I have nothing because my picks were atrocious. But let's get to some of our picks. We will go kind of position by position or award by award. The AL and NL Cy Young awards. I can only speak for myself because they're all terrible. What asshole picks Aaron Nola to win an NL Cy Young? I don't know. But we've learned over the last 8 weeks or so that Aaron Nola doesn't know how to pitch against good teams. He shies away from pitching against good teams. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I think he's afraid to pitch against good teams. That was a terrible selection by me. And then in the American League, I took Tristan McKenzie, and then like 48 hours later, he was on the 60-day IL, and he's been back on the IL since. I'm not going to say it's a bad pick because I think if he pitches well or pitches at all, he's in the running. But the guy's pitched like 3 times all year. So for me, my Cy Young picks could not have been much worse. So
does this constitute as a Tyler take?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think the Tyler take would be that Qdoba is better than Chipotle. That's a Tyler take.
Agreed.
But
Okay.
this one's valid because I think Tyler would have picked a lot of those popular choices. And again, Aaron Nola has the stuff. And Zully's actually absolutely right in that he definitely shies away from these good teams. But the weird dichotomy of it is that the most annoying thing, we just talked about it before the show started, Aaron Nola shies away from good teams in that he just tries to pitch around guys. But when he's got an 0-2 count on a batter, what does he always freaking do? He throws the ball inside, middle in, and it's a freaking meatball. I don't understand why. It's an 0-2 count. You have 3 waste pitches. And yet he's still like, oh, well, I'm definitely not going to give a home run up this game.
Oh, Mike, I think too that's not just an Aaron Nola thing. It's a JT Realmuto.
It's a JT
thing.
Realmuto.
I mean, listen, we talk, we sing the praises of JT Realmuto, and rightfully so. He's the best, one of the best. I don't know if he's the best anymore, but he's one of the best catchers in baseball. Pop time's unreal. His caught stealing rate's insane. He's gone through a slump offensively, but he's been a doubles machine for the better part of his career. He's an awful pitch ball, and he has been for most of his career. I mean, I don't know the intricacies of catching that way. I've never caught a day in my life, but just from an outside perspective, he's a terrible pitch call.
You're not going to believe this, but literally 30 seconds ago, I was shitting on Aaron Nola. He gave up a middle-end fastball home run to Dansby Swanson on the 3rd pitch of the at-bat.
I think it's funny that you had him as your pick for the NL Cy Young because there are 3 pitchers on his same team that are better than him. Not only
Suarez, to me, you guys know how much I love Suarez.
He's the best.
And Wheeler's still better than him. Who are we going with as the third?
Have you seen Walker's numbers this month?
Okay, fair.
He's looking better, but I would still pick
Better than Nola.
Nola over.
I would take Nola over Walker, but he's been really good this month. There's no denying that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take Nola over him.
Maybe the best one of all of them.
I think all of us had a good Cy Young pick. I mean, Mark's
Nope.
other than Zuli.
We've
Yeah,
got
NL Cy Young was Alcantara. So
Alcantara, which is it's been
a weird year for
it's
Alcantara.
shockingly weird because the Marlins, if you showed me the Marlins record as it is right now, I would be like, oh, Alcantara's pitching as well as he did last year. And it's not even close. I mean, the Marlins are kind of good. Ohtani was a reach, but he's not pitching. He's like he's a very good pitcher. He's just the ERA is not quite there. The strikeout numbers are insane. But yeah, I think Mike and I are NL wise. I'm out of it. Mike might have 2 winners with Gallen in the NL and Valdez in the AL, but I still think that I have the guy in the AL right now, Garrett Cole, and partly because he's the only good starting pitcher on the Yankees right now. Like, I thought we were going to have Rondon all season when I made the pick. And the fact that Cole has gone 8-1 with the worst offense in baseball since May 15th is pretty spectacular, I think.
So I am a big believer in like MVP. We've talked about this being most valuable player. Cy Young to me is an individual award. Like, it doesn't matter how good or bad your team is. We've seen Felix Hernandez win Cy Youngs. We've seen Jacob deGrom win back-to-back without getting wins. Is Cole deserving? Sure. If the season ended today, I'd probably lean McClanahan.
yeah.
But it's not like it's a far-fetched choice to say that Garrett Cole is deserving to win the AL Cy Young, because he certainly is. I just think if you're giving me the option, my option right now is Shane McClanahan.
Well, the odds right now, as of today, were McClanahan 1, Fromber 2, Cole 3. So I mean, it's halfway through basically.
Yeah.
Anything can happen at this point. Injuries happen. Guys catch heat. Freaking Ranger Suarez, baby, having the best month in a long time.
Incredible.
Pitchers I've ever seen. So you never know what can happen.
hey, we're recording, buddy. We don't want to do that.
I'm in the room with 2 of the other 3 co-hosts of this podcast, and the real co-host that I want to be in the room with is Gary.
Yeah.
So is Gary.
I will say, Mark, I think you already have 2 winners on your MVP docket.
Yeah.
The season's only half over, but the AL MVP has been locked up. I don't really care what happens the rest of the season. Ohtani's won in a landslide. And
I'll take that one too.
And yeah, we'll 3 of us will take that one. And I think all Acuna needs is 1 more month of the way he's playing right now, and he could probably coast for the next 2 months, and he's still locked up the NL MVP.
Jack, you mean our NL MVP pick is not going to happen?
If the World Baseball Classic counted, he still might be top 3.
He's up to Trey Turner up to 248, boys.
Holy crap!
29 RBIs, 8 home runs.
Yeah.
That's some top.
It'd be crazy if like all the Phillies at some point turn it on together.
I mean, they kind of are.
It won't happen, but
You mean like winning baseball?
they're winning, but
16.
they're still not all playing great.
So
Yeah.
I think you guys, you don't need any further validation. Shohei Ohtani's the American League MVP, and Ronald Acuna is the National League MVP, I think. And I'm not sure any of them are even going to get close at this point. Like,
Is there a conversation to be had though of Reyes if he does end up batting?
if he hits over 400, you certainly could have the conversation, especially if the Marlins make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But there's not. I mean, he's not a power hitter. He's not an RBIs guy, and I'm not discrediting him. You know how much I love watching him play. But Acuna is going to hit close to 40 home runs. He's going to steal close to 40 bags, and he's going to drive in. What's he on pace for? 95 RBI.
He's unreal, right?
I think
he's
that's
insane.
I think that's the biggest thing with Arias is like you got to score runs to win baseball games, and he just doesn't knock in runs. And like as cool as 400 would be, even if he hit 10 home runs but he drove in 100, then we have the conversation. Maybe
Sure.
he's MVP.
At 400, of course.
You got to knock in runs, and that's the biggest thing that's going to hold him back, I think. I mean, if he just went on, he would have to hit 450 to win MVP without knocking in at least 85 runs.
I hate that it feels exaggerated, but I also feel
I think you'd have to
you're
bet
not far off.
450. And even then,
If he hits over 400, I don't know. Like, who was the last guy to hit over 400?
Ted Williams.
Yeah.
he's not
Yeah.
going to.
So, like, I don't know.
It's
He's
cool.
probably not going to. Let's be honest.
It's cool, but like, what is hitting over 400 do for his team? Where like, would you rather have a guy that hits over 400 or a guy that drives in 130?
In this
I
league,
would take Kyle
You
Schwarber.
can't win the runs.
Yeah, exactly.
if you take Acuna off that team, though, they're still a powerhouse. Like I know it's a little bit less to be said about in baseball. The most valuable player is really just the guy who helps his team the most. But Acuna or not, the Braves are going to go to the World Series this year.
Yeah, but
Like
he's their catalyst.
He's like, I was say, he's the leadoff hitter. He always seems to get on base. He's always on second base when he's on base.
Yeah, for sure. He makes them better, of course.
The
But
year Jimmy Rollins won the MVP, they had a good baseball team, right? In 07, but Jimmy Rollins was the catalyst. I mean, he also fell into a category of being one of like 5 players ever to go 2020, 2020, 2020, which is insanity. But you know, Curtis Granderson did it the same year and he didn't win AL MVP. So the point is like there's something to be said for being, I know I've used the word twice now, but to be a team's catalyst, like it means something in the MVP debate.
Yeah, the Braves are still good without Acuna, but you can't fault Acuna for that. I guess like the MVP, the other thing is the MVP has been like no one votes the same way. Like some people think it is truly the most valuable player to that specific team, and some people are the guy that just had the best season. But Ohtani is just both, so I guess he automatically wins no matter what.
definitely better than McDavid for sure.
I saw a stat, like it was a graphic the other day of like Angels players and like the leader and like all these different things. He was the leader in everything but saves. And honestly, if they let him be a closer, he'd probably also be the leader in saves.
Sure.
Like that dude, he is the Angels. Mike Trout's on that team, and you kind of forget about it almost this year because Ohtani's been that good.
But can he skate blue line to blue line at blazing speed?
I'm sure he probably could if he put his mind to it.
Probably. You give him like a day to learn how to ice skate.
I'm playing both sides. That way I always come out on top.
Let's kind of diverge for a little bit on this Ohtani thing. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. What number does that number start with next year?
5.
Because I think it's 6.
It's a 6. Because the Mets are absolutely terrible this year. And Steve Cohen is not going to sleep until he has his best run at Ohtani. And that's what makes me sad. I really feel like he's going to become a Met.
I think it's probably 10 for 600.
I was gonna say
How old is Ohtani right now?
It's 28,
29.
29.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to run till 40.
Yeah.
He's getting one big contract.
I think it's 10 at 550 is my guess.
I think he gets 12 for 615.
I don't think anyone's going to give him more than 10 if he's already 28, 29.
Turner got 13
Yeah.
at 29.
I don't think the years matter at all.
No,
Like,
it doesn't.
like they
It
give
doesn't.
them 20 years if that's what it took to
They're
get.
expecting the stink at the end of the
I'm just trying to think if there actually going to be a 6 in there or not. And
I think there is. I think Mike, that's a good 615 is probably about right. I mean, you're looking at $50+ million a season.
yeah, that's probably about right. Damn, that.
Am I going to go out on a limb here and say that's not going to be worth it?
I think that's if you want to talk about Tyler takes, that's a Tyler take. You're paying for 7 years.
I'm really only saying that. I don't actually think that, but I in my gut of guts think that the Mets are going to end up signing him, and God, do I want it not to work out.
Well, yeah, of course you do as a Phillies fan, but like the likelihood it's going to.
Does his arm or his back give out first?
His arm. He'll be a DH long after he's a starting pitcher.
But I'm
So
fine with
you're basically paying for 7 more years of pitching, and then
I don't even think
after
that. You're paying for 4 to 5 years of arguably the best player to ever play the game of baseball, and then you're hoping that you get at least 3 to 4 more years of still a 30 home run, 85, 90 RBI guy, and it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the contract.
Can you believe there are 2 players in our lifetime? I mean, there are a couple more, but really right now that we could consider like one of the best of all time. They're on the same team and we haven't seen them play a playoff game. Like, how insane is that?
Until this
It also sucks that if they're on the same team and they stay there, they probably will never play a playoff game.
Right.
You're gonna play a playoff game this year.
I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Now I know we're kind of going off the rails. You talk about best ever.
At least we're still on
Potentially.
sports, though.
Sure. Is there a potential
Chipotle is the best.
in our lifetime? So I was born
Always the Ohtani.
93, and I'm the oldest here, but 93 is still not old by any means. Is there a potential that in the 4 major sports categories, we have seen the most talented player of each sport in our lifetime? I mean, obviously we can't speak for, the 1920s in baseball or the 1950s in the NFL, but I think there's a potential you could make a case for it.
Tom
My
Brady.
dad would say absolutely no shot.
Obviously, it's not Brady talent wise. If you're going quarterback, it's Mahomes.
And
Oh, you mean
NFL's the only one where I don't know if that's the case.
I watched Jerry Rice play. Is he the most talented player of all time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's the most talented wide receiver of all time.
The answer to that to me is Randy Moss.
I agree.
But
I think
I think the NFL is the hardest one to say who the greatest of all time would be. You could even say it's Tom Brady because he's just the most successful of all time.
I
Yeah,
don't
but I
think
guess-
we're ever going to see that replicated again, though. What Tom Brady did and the level of clutch that he was.
I think Mahomes is the only one that had a chance.
Sure, but I guess the question, like, if it's greatest or most talented, because to me that's a completely.
I think it's
different-
what my question was
Most
most
talented,
talented
yes.
because I look at McDavid and I think he's more talented than Gretzky. And
Yeah, I don't think. I think if anyone debates talent now in the NHL versus what it was 30 years ago and says that the guys 30 years ago are better
Sure.
than the ones today, there are fourth liners today that are more talented than first liners in the 80s. It's just the way the game's changed. Like it's not up for debate. But yeah, McDavid, Ohtani, I think that one's starting to become clearer and clearer.
And I know people don't love this because you have the GOAT conversation, but if you're talking about talent and longevity, I mean, how do you deny LeBron James that case?
Sure.
So at minimum, you might have. Are there players more talented than LeBron? Probably, but the threshold at which he played at and has played at for 20 years now, you're looking at 3 or 4 probably.
Yeah, and in his prime, there wasn't a more talented player.
And you're gonna get and no disrespect when I use this term, I use this endearingly. You're gonna get old heads who say, "Oh, you guys are all under 30. You're young. You've not seen this player or that player or this era of this league." I understand it's a little bit skewed, but it's hard to deny.
Speaking of,
I can actually hear my dad already sitting in his living room watching this right now saying, Will Chamberlain's just the best basketball player of all time. You can play him in any era. It doesn't even matter. We've had this argument every single time I've come home in the last 7 years.
You know what'll really piss him off? Have you ever gone with the Wilt Chamberlain actually didn't score 100 points until there's tape of it? I don't believe it, Dad.
He does not like that argument. He's
on a
He's like, it was on the radio, we could hear it. I'm like, yeah, but that's not tape. I didn't see it. I don't know.
Who's to say the conspiracy theory isn't that he scored 100 points?
He hates it even more whenever I say, well, he was playing against dentist.
He wasn't. That's the thing. That's why I don't think the talent can be even debated across these eras, because half of professional athletes back in the day had other jobs. These guys currently, that's it. That's all they do. And I'll debate old heads all day on there are third liners nowadays that are better than your favorite players
better than the
in the
dentist
70s and the 80s in hockey.
Your dentist name is Crentis?
I used to go see Dr. Smith at 8 a.m. for a filling, and then you went to the game later and you saw him playing center.
Dr. Smith scored 2 goals, a hat trick.
Also, why is he playing center at 6'4"? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I would like to make a quick
7 foot
call
going,
out,
I'm playing with children today.
just because we could be watching this as old heads with our kids in 30 years. Just go on YouTube. It'll be out there in the ether for a long time.
Forever.
Tonight, actually, there was some history of somebody who could become one of those greatest of all time conversationalists, and it's Connor Bedard going #1 overall to the Blackhawks. So I just want to point out, the night that this is being recorded, we just saw Connor Bedard go #1. Who knows? Who's to say he's not better than McDavid one day?
I'll make a bold statement that I don't think Bedard gets close to McDavid in his career right now. I think Bedard is, hype-wise, he's the third biggest prospect in the last 20 years behind McDavid and actually the fourth
Crosby.
biggest. McDavid, Crosby, Ovechkin,
Yeah.
Bedard.
Would you put him over Kane?
Yes. Yeah. Hype-wise, yes, because he's Canadian. Because American hockey-born players don't get as much hype as the Canadian.
Okay.
That's why Crosby and McDavid are probably the
1 and
two
2.
most hyped of all time.
Makes sense.
Largely because, and if Crosby was drafted when McDavid got drafted, he probably would have been even more hyped than McDavid. He just came out in an era where social media still was at its infancy.
Sure.
But they're not talking about the Russian rocket, Matvey Michkov.
I'm more excited for you guys to return to this argument and this video every probably couple months, because I know how you two work, and you're just gonna keep arguing this for the next 10 years until we actually know the answer, and it'll be great.
You know, none of us are going to back down.
No, never. We never do. Our egos are way too big.
I want to ask you guys before we get to kind of wrapping up our show for tonight. We gave division predictions, Major League Baseball division prediction. We gave World Series predictions.
Any picks you want to take back, Mark?
So that was my first question. Was any picks you'd like to have back?
I'll take the Royals possibly making the playoffs back.
What do they have to go, 50 and -10 the rest of the way?
You're in the AL Central.
Something like that, man. I don't know. I think the AL, their entire division just has to get into a dire plane crash altogether or something like that, and then they're
actually only 8 games back in the division.
I think the minor league teams would send guys up and they would still beat them. That's how bad it is. Is that a bad pick? Maybe.
Yeah.
Do I stand by it? A little bit.
The one I'd probably take back is I didn't have the Rays making the playoffs, which is it's obviously going to happen right now.
It's 99% certain.
And that's on me for putting my faith in the Blue Jays to do anything. A team that their 2 best players are fat. We knew that wasn't going to work out.
I am going to give Mark. I'm giving you a
no
shout
fat
out.
shaming on this show.
Sorry, I said their 2 best players are fat. That was preseason predictions because Alex Manoah is not one of their 2 best players anymore.
We're shaming Mark for the Royals pick, but Mark's the only one of the 4 of us that did not have the Cardinals in the playoffs.
True.
So
Because the Cardinals suck and I knew it.
they're terrible.
He is the Brewers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Brewers are a playoff team.
They didn't even have them as a wild card team.
I'm a genius.
The only thing that goes against you with that is that division is the 2nd worst division in baseball, and the Cardinals are in last place, but they could do Cardinals thing and make a last month run and still probably sneak into a wild card spot. But yeah, right now they look terrible.
Or they could trade Paul Goldschmidt to the Phillies. That'd be kind of cool.
Certainly plausible.
I'll take that. I will take that. They're not as far back as I had hoped they would be in that division.
I think we're all pretty good on nailing our surprise picks, if I remember those correctly.
Well, mine is the furthest off.
Yours is the furthest off, but
mine so I had the Red Sox getting close to 100 losses, and they would have to go 20 and they're 40 and 40.
Yeah,
they'd have to go 20 and 60 the rest of the way. Which I don't listen. They're not good, but I don't think that they're going to go 20 and 60 the rest of the way.
Mark, Orioles are really good. Take a big step this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Mark partial credit though, because he said the Orioles are gonna be good with his surprise, but he wasn't ballsy enough to pick them to make a wild card. So I don't know.
Are you sure? I feel like I did. I don't know
about that.
Mark did. Yeah,
you didn't even have him making the playoffs.
You did not. No, he opted for the Royals.
Oh, no, that's right.
I thought the Royals were my surprise pick. I guess I was wrong.
You did not have them.
No, the Royals were your completely out of left field pick. Your surprise was, I think Mike had the Diamondbacks being really good, not quite making the playoffs as his surprise. I honestly don't remember.
Let's be honest. The people wouldn't tune in if I didn't make a pick like that, though. This is what the people want. All right.
Oh, my surprise pick for the Mariners. That looks awful right now.
Yikes.
So, with all that being said, a lot of us have the Atlanta Braves in some capacity in the World Series. You guys sticking with that? If you do, or so let me rephrase this question.
I'll double or nothing.
What is your World Series prediction now that we're about halfway through the season?
I'm gonna go Braves versus the Rays.
Chalk.
It's hard. It's hard not to, but I don't want to pick that one because that's the easy pick. I will still
I
have the
wanted to pick to
Braves.
start the year, but I just wasn't like I was too worried about the Rays not being a good pick, so I just didn't even pick them.
Yeah.
But now I like it, and I just think that they have so much talent, and they're going to go under the radar until they are in the playoffs and just wipe the floor with people. That's what's
I'm just kind of excited for like Game 5, just going over to Truist and just doing the chop, just to be a part of it.
Yeah.
To be a part of it.
I'm not going to switch mine just because I have the Braves and I think that would be stupid to switch at this point. And I had the Astros too. And when I look at the AL, I still think the only team that I would pick over the Astros in a series right now are the Rays. The Rangers without DeGrom in a short series scare me. I think their bats could go cold.
I don't trust their pitching
I
either,
don't trust
to
their
be quite
pitching.
honest.
The Yankees suck. I kind of hope they lose, so Cashman might lose his job. Orioles, I honestly would like sneaky love to pick the Orioles to come out of the East, but they're not going to.
Don't
this
trust
year.
their pitching either.
And the Angels again, they might make the playoffs. They'll find a way. NL Central doesn't even count. So yeah, I'll stick with mine.
Mark.
You had the same one.
I mean, I don't want to pick it, but it probably is the right pick where it's Rays Braves, just because.
Stick to your guns. Don't change.
Mark had Phillies over Yankees.
Yeah, I don't want that one anymore. I think I was being hopeful with the Phillies because everyone else said the Braves, but I was being realistic with the Braves, and I'm going to stick to the Braves. They're a juggernaut. They have too much talent, too much youth, good pitching, actually. They actually have a bullpen, unlike some other teams that I know that wear red pinstripes.
I don't understand your Phillies bullpen hatred. They are amongst the league's best for a second consecutive year. I don't get your hatred for this bullpen.
Yeah, watch.
I think it might even be more my hatred for the lack of timing of when to go to them. I think that might be.
That's a Rob Thompson thing.
Maybe I just don't like Rob Thompson.
But their back end of their bullpen, Dominguez when healthy has been good. Kimbrel's been electric. Really freaking good. Alvarado when healthy has been amazing. They have
Soto.
And Soto's been he had an awful first week, and he's been really good since then. Like, I know that it's hyperbole almost because they've been bad for so long, but this is the second consecutive year that the Phillies bullpen's amongst the league's best.
They just need health. I mean, Bilotti needs to get back up to the majors. They need Brogdon to get back to what he was doing. I mean, to watch some of these guys, you shake your head in disgust when you see Jeff Hoffman come into a game that's tied.
That was a bad decision. A really bad
against the Braves, who you need to beat. You need to beat them. And then you see Junior Marte come in against the Mets when you need to beat them. It just doesn't make sense to me, some of the decisions that they make. It's just frustrating. But, I mean, all in all, you can't knock them versus what it was 2-3 years ago. That was the worst.
Running out us.
Arguably ever.
I also kind of feel like before this,
almost ever.
Anyone.
Before this month, I just feel like the starters weren't doing that poorly. They were being left in for an inning too long. And I think that's because Rob Thompson didn't trust the bullpen. And that's more of where my disgust this year has been. But also, I'm a Philly fan, so I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I just kind of know it will.
Like, think about, I mean, the Yankees bullpen's been really good. Jack, I think you can attest to that.
I think it's the best in baseball.
Yeah, it's really, really good. But a lot of the bullpens that I expected to be really good, some of them are struggling a little bit. The Padres bullpen's struggling. I mean, Hader's been good, but with that bullpen with Martinez and Suarez and Hader, I expected them to be elite, and they're not having a chance to be because they're not winning a lot of baseball games.
And I think the problem too is that just pitching in general has struggled this year. I'm really interested to see what happens at the trade deadline with all of these teams that need pitching.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, as far as the Phillies are concerned, in a year that batters are just having their way with a lot of pitchers, how do you have Trey Turner batting under 250? How do you have Kyle Schwarber batting under 180? It's just unforgivable. And then you see JT Realmuto going his streaks. And then I think a lot of the product of what you saw in the coming months with some of their starters was what we were talking about, where he's calling his pitches and what he loves to do, have the inside pitches come in on favorable counts for the pitcher. It doesn't make sense. End of rant.
So will you sticking with your World Series prediction? You
I
also had, I think we both had.
had Braves Guardians.
Oh, that's right.
And the Guardians have been riddled with injury. Plus, I think their young core is kind of taking a little bit of a step back. I mean, they can still win that division because we talked about it. It's miserable.
Anyway.
But I am going to go Braves and Houston. I think Houston still is the most talented team in the AL. And the Braves. Listen, I know the Rays have been running away with things, and good on them for getting Zach Eflin to pitch well, and good on them for having the team that they've put together. I still think Houston's the most complete team in the American League again. It's hard to win back to back, but I think that you're probably looking at a Houston-Atlanta World Series.
I hate having Houston in the World Series.
Not fun.
I'm sick of it.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Noise.
All right, guys, it's segment time, and we were trying to remember whose turn it was, and quite frankly, we quite couldn't remember. It was either me or Mark, and we're trying to rack our brains to come up with something fun. So this isn't fun. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm a big believer in transparency, and since we made fun of Mark for picking the Royals, and we made fun of me for picking awful candidates for Cy Young, I want to go down memory lane, and I want to talk about. Because we always love to boast about our good takes. I want to talk about our worst sports takes. Now, it could be draft related. It could be player, team, coach, whatever it might be. We all have misses, right? I'm a big proponent of, it's kind of like betting. If I hit 60% of my takes, that's pretty darn good. I want to know what your guys' worst sports takes were, dating back to let's say when we started this whole thing in college, right? So if you said something in high school that was dumb, you were 17, right? Dating back to college, what was your worst sports take?
Oh, mine's easy. And I know that I think all of you guys know what mine is because I always hear about it. I said once upon a time that Maikel Franco would be better than Chris Bryant. And I really believed it.
Yeah,
I really did.
Because we argued about that a lot.
I really did.
Yeah.
And
how's that
didn't
working out for
happen.
you? I mean, listen, Chris Bryant's kind of slowed down.
Chris Bryant hasn't done as much as we thought he would since he got that big deal. But yeah, I mean, over the first 100 games, I thought Franco was going to be a superstar, and it just turned out to be anything but. So disappointing.
I thought Christian Hackenberg was going to succeed in the NFL.
That's not great.
You did not think that. No way.
I did.
After all the things that Mark told you about him behind the scenes.
Whoa. I don't know what you're talking about here. Hey.
And you know what? Maybe I haven't learned because I'm doubling so far down on Sean Clifford going to be a better NFL quarterback than Will Levis.
I mean,
not just that. I think Sean Clifford's going to be good for a couple of years in the NFL.
I think Matt McGloin is better than what Will Levis is going to be.
I think Matt McGloin was better than what Sean Clifford's going to be. Will Levis is going to be a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, because he got drafted.
Every quarterback drafted in the second round since 2009, I believe, is the furthest I went back, has had starting capacity at some point. Christian Hackenberg had the least.
Yep.
Out of everyone draft, and now it's Kyle Trask, right? So Kyle Trask might be a starter in Tampa Bay, but those two guys are the outliers in terms of the least amount of draft productivity out of a second round pick. But even think about how many second round picks have gone on to be long-term starters. Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick. Trying to think if there's been any other ones, but those are the three that jump off the page to me. They're guys that have had long-term runs. So Levis is going to be a starter at some point.
Yeah.
I think my worst take was that Ray Rice was going to have a long tenured career in the NFL.
Wow. That's
tough.
You'd think I was going to be dead on. He looked great for a long time. I don't know what happened to him, but
that's a punch in the face. Continue.
That one was right there.
I think my worst take really is just every single beginning of the season when I say, you know what? It's Philly's year. We're going to win it all this time. And every year I go, you know what?
That's just being a Sixers fan.
Thinking.
That's life as a Sixers fan.
It's life as a sports fan.
For the most part.
So one of my worst takes happened in the 2013 NFL draft. It was Chip Kelly's first draft. The only draft he ever drafted well in. I absolutely hated the Lane Johnson pick. Hated it. Because I wanted the Eagles to move heaven and earth to go draft Deion Jordan. Linebacker, defensive end. Oregon made so much sense to me. Deion Jordan wasn't very good on the field, had a lot of off-the-field issues as well. Lane Johnson's been a staple on the right side of the Eagles' offensive line. I mean, he may be still the best right tackle in football in 10 years after he got drafted. I hated the Lane Johnson pick, and I could not have been any more wrong on that pick. Now, on the flip side, I like to talk about what we got right. What did you nail? What take did you get 100% correct? Maybe one that was controversial at the time.
Penn State winning the 2023 national championship. Oh wait,
That hasn't quite happened yet.
Jalen Carter pick.
I don't know if you can. I mean, you nailed that selection.
And called it.
It was the 2017 Super Bowl. I called it at the beginning of the year. But,
Did you actually?
Zach Edey's sucking at basketball, and he didn't even go to the NBA draft.
It's a fair take.
That's a great take.
That is the hottest take.
So,
Coldest take.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys, off the field issues or off the court issues aside, one of my takes that I was steadfast in was the 2019 draft. John Morant was a better player coming out of college than Zion Williamson was. And I understood you had to take Zion Williamson number one. But again, off the court issues aside, and I guess you could say off the court because Zion's not been on the court, but John Morant's a better pick on the court than Zion Williamson is now, and I think was at the time.
I mean,
Let's not get into it, but they both have.
I was gonna say Zion's catching up in the off the court department right now.
Yeah. So, but that's not a bad take.
That's a
I'm
good
trying to think of another one of my good ones. I didn't have a lot of them. It's very rare.
Oh, you know what? I do have a really good one, but it just hurts to say. I was absolutely right in thinking that Justin Jefferson was going to be a superstar.
Yep. I had arguments. People were trying to tell me he was a glorified slot receiver.
I thought he was going to be amazing.
I thought that was
and
the
he turned
dumb-
out to be amazing.
the
And
dumbest
guess who
nonsense
didn't
I've ever
draft
heard.
him?
If it helps, I was absolutely right that Nelson Aguilar was going to be a bum.
There you go. That's a good one.
So at least I knew that right away.
And the funny thing, Mike, with yours is I liked Jalen Reagor coming out of school. He's just not as much as I like Justin Jefferson.
I needed you and everybody else to justify that to me. I'll shout out my fiance Jill here and saying that during that draft, I can vividly remember during COVID watching that in my apartment with her, and she was working during that time, and I was just livid. I was so pissed. I was just screaming at the TV for the Reagor pick and for the Hurts pick. So I will say that's another one that I got wrong. I was very upset at
I think most of Philly was.
Yeah, I mean, that was a popular thing to have everybody be upset because they had Carson Wentz on the new deal. But I mean, that Reagor pick made no sense. And I immediately turned to people and was like, please get me through this. Tell me why this is going to be good.
I'll be honest, I went the opposite way on the Hurts pick. I loved the Hurts pick because I never really was sold on Carson Wentz. I mean, yes, he was good. And don't get me wrong. You can look at the end of his career and say maybe he wasn't, but he had a couple seasons there where it was like, he looked like a superstar, but I just never believed that it was the real thing. And Hurts just, even in college, he had that chip on his shoulder, which is the most Philly thing ever.
Yeah.
I got Wentz duped.
I can't think of another one I had right. I thought of another one I got wrong. I was convinced Lamar Jackson was not going to translate to the NFL.
I did love
It's an
Lamar
MVP
Jackson.
candidate or MVP winner.
I
right
won
there.
a very hilarious bet that cannot be talked about
No.
that Jack knows about.
No,
Based on Lamar Jackson.
we'll offline that one.
So the point is, listen, we're never
Oh,
going to hit.
I knew one. 1980. I saw that one coming.
Oh, did you?
USA over USSR.
Yeah.
Had that one.
I believe that, actually.
They
I
should
believe
make a
that.
movie
I
about
called that one in 75.
that. They should.
I was like, it would be a miracle. But I believe in miracles.
They really should make a movie about that.
Yeah.
It'd be a good one.
It
You
would.
should be in it.
I wonder what the title would be. I can't believe that shit just happened.
Hockey.
America?
America, F yeah.
Who do you play for?
Actually, I think the name would just be like, fuck USSR. And that's just the name of the movie.
I think
Nice.
Universal Studios should pick that up.
Probably.
I think it might be a Disney movie, honestly.
That sounds like
Sounds
It's
like a
probably
Disney
not a good enough movie for Disney.
It's too cliche to be Disney.
Disney already had Mighty Ducks. Can't get too into the weeds about hockey.
So the point of this whole thing was you're not going to hit on everything, right? And people love to tell you when you're wrong. And so I'm a big proponent of, I will tell you when I get my picks wrong, as long as you let me gloat when I get my picks right. And if I hit 60%, I'm good.
I thought one more.
Go ahead.
Cliff Lee, I wanted him so bad. And when the Phillies traded for him in 2009, was one of the happiest days of my life. And Cliff Lee had one of the greatest second halves I've ever seen.
It was like Cliff Lee won,
Unbelievable.
getting engaged too.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right underneath.
Yeah.
Cliff Lee playing at Thon, Asante Samuel signing with the Eagles, getting engaged.
I really hope Jill is not watching this.
I'm just kidding.
She never watches
He's
this.
not kidding.
Episodes.
He is not
Never
kidding
gets
at
this
all.
far in the episodes.
All right, guys. So we're just about out of time. We're gonna wrap this thing up. This was a lot of fun, Mark. Maybe one day we'll get you here, or we'll just put your floating head behind us.
I love you, Mark.
But
Guys, next time, and we're gonna have our golf outing. It's gonna be great. We can even do the show from the course.
Beautiful.
that would be a disaster.
We almost did the show
Thank
for
you.
Marky's mini golf.
I was driving my way up there, and I'm like, I put it in my GPS, like, how far is it gonna take me out? It was like 2 minutes. I'm like, I should go. But we are going to wrap this thing up. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new edition of Crossing the Line. Until next time, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like and subscribe button for us. We would greatly appreciate it. I don't have to do boxes. We'll have to do one box. That's Mark Fagnani, or maybe that's Mark Fagnani. I'm not quite sure, but I know that's Jack Molesky, and that's Mike Davella, and I'm Tyler Zulli. So we'll talk to you guys next time right here on Crossing the Line podcast.